before we talk about COVID, do you expect any real progress from Secretary of State Blinken's meetings in Beijing?
Well, look, it's yet to be seen, but most likely no. I understand the administration's goal of trying to de-escalate. There's been a lot of heightened rhetoric regarding the U.S.-China relationship. But the reality is that China has been provoking. They have, whether it's the spy balloon, whether it's the base that is 90 miles from our shore in Cuba, whether it's activities they are conducting in the South China Sea, whether it's the fentanyl, whether it's the COVID. There's a lot of things that have happened over the last couple of years that have changed the relationship and the dynamic of the U.S.-China relationship.
How should the administration push back stronger, do you think?
I think the smartest thing to do for the United States of America, and we've been discussing this significantly in Congress, is to start taking action to remove our supply chains from China. You heard earlier about various trade deals that we're looking to implement, whether it be in the Indo-Pacific with Japan in particular, Indonesia, other areas, Taiwan in particular. We just approved a deal that the administration made with Taiwan in our Ways and Means Committee. That's the way we can get about this. But it is incredibly important to think about what Russia has done with Ukraine and Europe right now, and to think of us as being in that similar situation in the near future with China. We have to be smart about making sure we take our supply chain home, whether that means bringing it to the United States and manufacturing. That should be our priority, if not nearshoring and friendshoring, but making sure when it comes to semiconductors, when it comes to technology, when it comes to medication, I think that is one of the most critical components, making sure we take those pharmaceutical ingredients out of China and moving them to more like-minded nations. That is what we should be beginning to do. We should be doing right now. And that is what Congress is moving in that direction. We hope the administration joins us. The reality is that we see this administration in many ways placating as opposed to working with us diligently to try to shore up our supply chain so we're not vulnerable, so these things cannot be weaponized against us.
We're seeing moving some of the chip manufacturing here on our soil. What else can we do? How fast can this happen, do you think? You talk about the pharmaceuticals and the drugs. So many of them seem to be, made in China. What type of speed can Congress do to try to get this done as soon as possible?
Well, I think there's certainly an opportunity for us to move some of that supply chain home to the United States, but we should be dealing with countries, whether it's in South America, countries like Guatemala, for example, or in Europe, Poland, for example, where they are starting to manufacture pharmaceuticals, and we should be looking to move that as quickly as possible. I think we need to be prepared in the future. We cannot rely on China for all these critical supplies. We also need to look at our tax code to see how we can incentivize some of those return to onshoring. That needs to be a critical component of this. And as we are revisiting some of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act provisions as they are expiring, we should be looking to, in that mindset, that we need to start being more independent. So those are all things that we're currently working on. And I think it's critically important that the administration also sets that tone going forward. They need to be a little tougher. If they are going to be sending spy balloons over our skyline, then we need to address that.
Yeah.
If they are going to be having eavesdropping bases 90 miles from our shore, we also need to counter that.
Yeah.
We can't allow for this cushiness, which we've been seeing from this administration, unfortunately.
We're taking a look there on the screen at the spy balloon. Here's what the president said about the spy balloon. He called it an embarrassment for Beijing. Let's listen.
I think one of the things that balloon caused was not so much that it got shot down, but I don't think the leadership knew where it was and knew what was in it and knew what was going on. I think it was more embarrassing than it was intentional. And so I'm hoping that over the next several months, I'll be meeting with Xi again.
Is the president there trying to, ratchet down by saying, it's embarrassing the leadership didn't know anything about this balloon? Do you buy that? That they didn't know about this spy balloon going over our whole country?
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem that it had entered our airspace, it had gone over critical military facilities. It should never have been allowed to do that. And period. And the administration cannot make excuses for their own lack of action or the actions of Beijing, but they should be promising the American people, making commitment that it would never happen again. And I think that in itself, it was embarrassing for our country and certainly did not make the relationship any smoother between the United States and China. And it quite certainly increased the skepticism and the concern that House Republicans have about what Beijing is trying to accomplish. The other thing that we are hoping that we'll see coming out of this meeting with Secretary Blinken is that they take a more forceful approach against the fentanyl ingredients that are killing Americans.
Absolutely.
The majority of that fentanyl, those ingredients are coming from China via Mexico. They're being then turned into fentanyl pills and brought over our open southern border thanks to our president. That is another thing that we need our president to be more forceful on. They need to stop the poisoning and killing of the American people. And that is something that he should be taking up more forcefully with both Mexico and China. And
one more final point. You're on the coronavirus subcommittee. What are you finding out? What do you hope to investigate? I mean, what's your gut? Wet market or a Chinese bioweapon that just got out of hand?
Well, I have no doubt that this was something that was developed in the Wuhan lab. Now, whether it was specifically for the Chinese military or was it an accident as a result of gain-of-functioning research to develop a vaccine, that's the real question. In 3 weeks, we're going to be having our second hearing on the COVID's origins, and we're going to be having in some of those scientists who we believe that Dr. Fauci pressed upon to say that it was a natural origin. And then they changed their opinion because of the pressure they received from Dr. Fauci. So we'll be able to question those scientists about what they believe. But also remember that today is the day that we are supposed to be receiving the declassified